I never thought my family would fall apart because of jealousy. Not money, not property, not inheritance, jealousy. And the worst part is that the person caught in the middle of it all never understood what she had done wrong. Even today, years later, my younger daughter-in-law still asks the same question. What did I ever do to them? And honestly, I still don't have an answer. I have 2 sons and 1 daughter. For most of my life, I considered myself a fortunate man. My wife and I worked hard, raised our children with respect and discipline, and built a family that seemed strong from the outside. Our eldest son moved abroad more than 15 years ago. He built a successful life there and married a woman from a respectable family. We were proud of him. Every year or two, he and his wife would visit us for about a month. Those visits used to be the happiest time of the year. Everyone looked forward to them. My younger son was very different. He stayed close to home. For years, he struggled to find stable work and remained unmarried. Back then, my older son was very protective of him. Whenever anyone criticized his younger brother, he would defend him. He used to tell people, "He's my little brother. Leave him alone." That was the relationship they had, at least back then. Then everything changed. A few years later, my younger son got married. Unfortunately, my older son couldn't attend the wedding because he was overseas. We understood. Life happens. Nobody blamed him. After the wedding, my younger son's wife joined our family. She was quiet, respectful, never demanded attention, never argued with anyone. If anything, she tried too hard to avoid conflict. And that's why what happened next made absolutely no sense. The first time my older son and his wife visited after the marriage, something felt different. At first, it was subtle. Small comments, strange looks, passive-aggressive remarks, nothing serious enough to confront, but enough to notice. Then the complaints started. My older daughter-in-law suddenly seemed unhappy with everything. The food, the house, the atmosphere, the family dynamic. No matter what happened, she found a reason to be upset. And somehow, almost every complaint eventually led back to my younger son's wife. At first, I thought I was imagining things. Then one afternoon, I overheard a conversation that made me uncomfortable. Someone had complimented my younger daughter-in-law for helping around the house. A simple compliment. Nothing more. But later that day, my older daughter-in-law became unusually distant. She barely spoke during dinner. The mood changed instantly. That's when I began wondering if something deeper was happening. But I still didn't realize how serious it was becoming. And what happened during their next visit would completely change the way I looked at my own son. A few months later, after returning abroad, my older son sent me a message. The message seemed harmless at first. It simply said, "The house doesn't feel the same anymore." I asked him what he meant. He couldn't explain. A few weeks later, another message arrived. Again, he claimed the family wasn't the same. The warmth was gone. Things felt different. At first, I thought he simply missed home. But then the messages became more frequent and more emotional. Every time they visited and returned overseas, the same complaints would appear. The house wasn't the same. The family wasn't the same. People had changed. The strange part was that nobody else felt this way. Life continued normally for everyone else. Yet somehow, my older son and his wife seemed convinced that they were being treated unfairly. What none of us realized was that resentment was slowly building inside them. And resentment has a dangerous habit. It grows quietly until one day it explodes. Then came the visit that changed everything. The moment when small frustrations turned into open conflict. The moment I realized my son was no longer listening to anyone except his wife. And the moment I heard words from him that I never thought I would hear from my own child. But before that happened, there was one conversation involving my younger daughter-in-law that still breaks my heart whenever I remember it. Because that conversation revealed just how confused and hurt she really was. The conversation happened on an ordinary afternoon. I still remember it clearly. My younger daughter-in-law was helping my wife in the kitchen when I noticed she seemed unusually quiet. Normally, she was cheerful, respectful, always willing to help. But that day, something was bothering her. Later that evening, she approached me. At first, she hesitated. Then she asked a question that completely caught me off guard. "Father, can I ask you something?" I told her, of course. She looked down for a moment before speaking. "Why does she hate me?" For a second, I didn't understand who she meant. Then I realized she was talking about my older daughter-in-law. I asked her why she felt that way. What she said broke my heart. She told me she felt like no matter what she did, it was never enough. If she helped around the house, it became a problem. If she stayed quiet, it became a problem. If relatives complimented her, it became a problem. She wasn't angry, she was confused. And then she asked the question I still remember years later. What did I ever do to them? I had no answer. Because the truth was that I had started asking myself the same question. And unfortunately, things were about to get much worse. A few days later, our daughter came to visit. Like many families, whenever siblings gathered together, conversations eventually turned into family matters. At first, everything was normal. Then the complaints started again. My older daughter-in-law began talking about how unfairly she was treated, how nobody appreciated her, how the family had changed after my younger son's marriage. I listened quietly, but what surprised me was my daughter. Instead of calming the situation down, she immediately sided with her older brother and his wife. She insisted that maybe they were right. Maybe people had changed. Maybe their feelings were justified. Suddenly, the discussion became an argument. My wife tried to calm everyone down. I tried to change the subject. Nothing worked. For the first time, I could feel the family dividing into sides, and that feeling terrified me, because once families start choosing sides, repairing relationships becomes incredibly difficult. At the end of that visit, my older son returned overseas once again. But this time, the messages became even more aggressive. Every few weeks, there was a new complaint, a new accusation, a new misunderstanding. Eventually, I stopped recognizing the person I was talking to. This wasn't the son I had raised. This wasn't the same young man who used to defend his little brother. Something had changed, and deep down, I knew exactly what it was. He had reached a point where he believed every word his wife said without question, no matter how unreasonable it sounded, no matter how little evidence existed. If she felt offended, someone had to be guilty. And usually that someone was either his younger brother or his brother's wife. Then came the visit that finally pushed everything over the edge. At first, things seemed normal. The family gathered together, meals were shared, relatives visited. Everyone tried to enjoy the time together, but underneath the surface, tension was building. I could feel it. Everyone could. And then one evening during dinner, it finally exploded. The argument started over something so small that I barely remember what it was. A simple household issue. Nothing important. The kind of thing normal families forget within minutes. But somehow it turned into a major confrontation. Voices became louder. Accusations started flying. My older daughter-in-law once again blamed my younger son's wife. At that moment, something inside me snapped. For years, I had remained silent. For years, I had tried to keep the peace. For years, I had given everyone the benefit of the doubt. But I couldn't stay silent anymore. I looked directly at my older daughter-in-law and told her what I had been holding inside for years. I told her that every problem in the family seemed to somehow circle back to the same jealousy and resentment. I told her that nobody was competing against her. Nobody was trying to replace her. Nobody was trying to take anything away from her. I told her that she was slowly creating distance between family members who once loved each other. The room went completely silent. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then my older son stood up, and the look on his face immediately told me this wasn't going to end well. I expected him to disagree. I expected him to defend his wife. What I didn't expect was what came next. Because, in that moment, my son stopped speaking to me like a father. He spoke to me like an enemy, and the words that came out of his mouth changed our relationship forever. What happened during the next few minutes would become the most painful memory of my entire life, because no father is ever prepared to hear that level of disrespect from his own child.